podcast is part of the Sports Social Podcast Network.
Welcome to the Cardiff Central Podcast.
Hello, and welcome to Cardiff Central Podcast. You're joining me, Harley, and as ever, Carwyn. How are you doing, Carwyn?
Yeah, glad. Yourself? Well, I know because we chatted pre-pod, you're not feeling too well, actually.
Yeah, I managed to get a bit of a cold being out in the cold and Devon rain, watching a load of grown men and small children carrying barrels of tar everywhere. But we're not here to talk about weird traditions of the Southwest. So how about we start talking a little bit of rugby? So that Scarlets game, eh?
Yeah, well, you've got both jerseys in the background there. Well, the old card jersey, obviously. So we were talking about it just before we started the pod, and I was rewatching the first half, and I thought, do you know what? There were quite a few positives, but I think the ending of the game has soured them a lot. I really do, because I thought it was the best game I've seen of Ellis Bevan at 9. I thought he controlled the first half really well. I thought the pack really went strongly. The scrum was brilliant against, two international props. I know Matthias only has one cap and Sam hasn't played in a few years, but they're still international props. I thought the back row looked strong with Tamani shifting to 8. I thought that really worked. First half, I thought the traditions of saying that Cardiff concede soft tries, brilliant defence in the first. I know they eventually scored through Alex Gray, but Cam Winnett, brilliant tackle. There's a brilliant tackle on the outside edge on the left edge as well with Harry Millard. But yeah, the ending has somehow soured what was did seem a positive start to the game.
Yeah, it's one of those things when you look at the stats. We made more line breaks. We were doing more offloads. We beat more defenders. Our tackling percentages were about the same. We made more post-contact meters. All the stats were in our favour, and our kick. Scarlets actually made more kicks on us, but we kicked for a longer distance, which usually signs that. I think the big problem is when we got into that red zone and we just lost the final pass, or we cocked up the line out, which has just been a theme for Cardiff season for as long as I can remember. I don't remember us ever having a solid line out.
Yeah, well, I think that goes for every single Welsh team there's ever been and ever will be.
Apart from against the other Welsh teams, but
yeah.
I'm just glad you mentioned Cam Winnett, because he is still continuing to be a shining light. And people asking, is it too soon for him to get a Wales call up? And considering we're looking at makeshifting either Josh Adams or Lewis Rees-Zammit. I know lots of people prefer Zammit, although for me, I find his defensive capability, his defensive reading, and his his overall kicking game is, if he's doing a nice chip and chase up the wing, he's got the pace to get there. But I do find, I'd rather us bringing in a specialist fullback. And for me, Cam Winnett looks like a player who's been doing it for quite a while. Despite the fact this is probably his second proper season.
Yeah.
Where he's he's in the main first team.
Yeah, he showed his potential for a while, obviously, those Toulouse and Harlequin games. I remember him playing, I can't remember which one. He played one and didn't play the other. What is he played against Toulouse? And he was a shining light in that game, and he was exciting to watch. I in terms of that fullback Wales argument, I think he's still behind a Tom Rogers for the time being, whether that's rightly or wrongly. I think Tom Rogers is still being seen as the natural progression to a Liam Williams due to being a similar DAP in some ways. And obviously, shone really lightly against another player who's going to be up for that jersey in Johnny McNichol. I thought Cam's a player I really enjoy watching. It's hard not to enjoy watching him. And this season I've seen a side to his game I didn't know he had. This defensive strength, that tackle, that read that I just mentioned, that's brilliant defensive display. That's brilliant work. The kicking game, the work into the high ball, I didn't know how strong he was in that aspect. Obviously, I knew he had the step. I knew he had the ability to create from nothing, but it's his attempted offload that leads to the first Bevan try, with a bit of luck aside, obviously. But he's got so much quality going forward. I didn't realise he had so much defensively, but he's adding to his game as well. I'm excited to see where it goes. I wonder if Six Nations may be a bit soon, but certainly in the near future, I'd like to see him in a Wales jersey.
I mean, my one counterpoint for the Tom Rogers thing is, although everyone sees him as a 15, he's not getting in. He's not. He was playing at wing for the Barbars. And, whenever you see him play for Scarlets, he's playing on the wing because they've got Johnny McNichol there. So I think if he's not playing there, it's the same argument people have with George North is if the Ospreys are always playing him at the wing, how do you expect him to be an international quality centre? And he's got to play there. I think otherwise as well, I thought Cabango had another good game. I think in pre-season he'd looked so much better than everything going on about him. And, it's a shame, which, we've had an update now that he's currently seeing a specialist. So hopefully it's not as bad as people think. But it's looking like it looks like it's going to be on the month side of things other than weeks. I know Lee took the piss on the main pod about him, needing to learn how to dive for the try line and not injure himself, forgetting that, you had Johnny McNichol not doing his typical attempt of tackling, which is jump on top of the player. So you got the double weight thing. But I thought Reece Littrick, I thought he did really well. I know we had a bit of a discussion on the main Rap podcast about his feet were too far back and that's why Matthias looked like he was going down because he couldn't handle his weight. And I was like, well, if he knows well enough to play the ref like that, Xander Ferguson's a bugger for it. Like he will drop. I did a podcast with Craig from the Scottish Rugby pod close to a year ago now, and he says Xander Ferguson has openly said, "No, I dropped those scrums on purpose to see if I can get away with it, and then if I get pinged, I bring my feet forward." And that. You've got to play ref. It's same as at the breakdown. If you can be Quagga Smith and get away with a hand on the floor of the ruck, do it.
Yeah, I'm not going to compare Reece Littrick to Xander Ferguson because anyone who's followed anything I've done will know my slight frustrations with Xander Ferguson, and Craig is one that knows it too well as well. But yeah, I think it was a really exciting performance. The international props pushing them back. Showing a bit of dominance, yes, getting the referee on side, be it rightly, wrongly, however you see it, it's game management. I remember, going back to, talking about that 2013 Wales-England, all the talk was about how streetwise the Welsh pack were, how streetwise they were in the scrum. And that's half the job is being streetwise, being able to get away with these, pulling an arm down and not getting penalised for it, driving round a little bit, just and swinging a hip tap without getting pinged. The Cabango thing, I just got to mention it because on fire pre-season, stunning pre-season try against Scarlets, does it again. I was watching with a couple of in the office with a couple of Welsh internationals, and they both commented how gutted they were for him because he's a top lad playing brilliant rugby after a long-term injury. He's so unlucky. I'm genuinely heartbroken for Cabango. So heartbroken. I think this could have been I don't want to say breakout season because he almost had that last season or maybe even the season before, but he hasn't a full season that he could have displayed all his talents. And I think there are so many of them to showcase. He's strong, he's quick, and good in the air, and he works bloody hard. I got sidetracked. I told him Cabango, but I am genuinely heartbroken about it. I think it's such a loss for him and for Cardiff, and who knows for Wales maybe in the future as well.
Yeah, I think that's the thing is he's been, he has just come back from a long-term injury and then to be out for another couple of months. It's one of those frustrating things. So, Boss, have you got any other points you want to mention for the game, or as well on injuries? We've had an update from Cardiff.
Soft penalties is probably the other one. There were a lot of soft penalties given away, I thought. Especially in that first half, where you've got control, you've got forward dominance. There's one, I don't want to dig him out because I've given him heaps of praise on the pod, so I will actually, because I've given him heaps of praise, so here's the negative. A little moment, there's a kick from, I want to say it's Tynes de Beer, or it might be Nellis Bevan, chases, Theo Kabanga, sorry, it's Kabanga, chases down, makes the tackle, brilliant tackle. Alex Vann's within the 10, gives away a penalty for getting involved in the 10. And I just thought, Alex, come on, mate, be a bit more switched on. You're going to get pinged for that. That's an obvious penalty and it's cheap. Unless you don't need to get involved, just go, right, stand off and then get in your defensive line.
It goes back to being streetwise, though, doesn't it? And there was the other one, which was I missed it on. I rewound and couldn't quite work out, but there was a line out we got pinged for as well. And I think it might have been a more obstruction of the maul, so it might have been the maul setup. The lifters commit, sealing off around the jumper. And it's the things that refs are specifically looking for because they're easy penalties to give.
Yeah. It's those. When you've got such dominance in the maul as kind of did, you don't want to do something that's gonna both actually damage you, but also damage the image. It then says, oh, every time the referee sees you going forward, he's going to go, oh, wait, have you done that legitimately? If you're whiter than white every single time and show that, perfect. It's probably a mistake. There's another couple of moments in that first half that I keep on going about that first half, but Cardiff played so well in parts. That Lilo 3-on-1 throws the ball to Johan Lloyd. That's another moment I thought where he's broken the line. Could have happened, but then second half there's also a couple. I thought Gareth Davies was electric at points and showcased all his experience and a little bit of inexperience from Mann and Ellis Bevan to get caught out on that blind side. I thought with Gareth Davies comes off the back of the scrum, jumps down the blind side. Very, if there ever was a textbook Gareth Davies moment, it's that. And they both got a little bit caught out on it. And I thought, okay, that's more a learning curve, and hopefully one that can be drummed into them. And if there's a player that drum things into them, it'll be Gethin Jenkins to say, right, look, this is where you went wrong. This is how you rectify it. And for a lot of players, it was a learning curve. I thought on the weekend, but I still think there's a lot more positives than negatives, personally.
Speaking of that particular scrum, to try, I thought it was quite interesting because it's not often you see the scrum half stand back, because obviously the scrum half can go, and whereas the main back line has to be 10 metres back, the scrum half can actually only have to be 5, so he's actually got a head start. But most scrum halves you see harrying the other scrum half or the 8, getting there to try and mess up the ball. I thought it was quite weird to see Bevan step back. I don't know if that was a tactical thing or he just felt that he needed to be back so he could see what was going on with the picture. I mean, Vice Fito and Gareth Davies were just unbelievable. I mean, I thought.
I was going to say they were class above and they showed it, weren't they? A little bit.
Yeah, I felt Cardiff seemed to lose the fight when Tamani came off. I think he was definitely, having him back is huge, and I hope by hook or by hook we can keep him for a bit longer, because I think he was only on a 2-year deal. Hopefully I'm wrong with that. But
I'm not optimistic about that, I must be honest. He's not going to be on.
I very much doubt it, because we're losing more budget, and I feel like he could probably get more money from him somewhere else.
I not knowing what he's on, I worry about that. The structural question of whether Ellis Bevan is structural or not is I think that's a valid question. The same thing a little bit. You mentioned. Again, John McNichol's try. That was one soft try. I thought that was a soft moment.
Yeah, that for me was more someone bumped. Him. That was a tackle that needed to be made, and he bumped him. And
it's a fullback targeting a tight head prop as first receiver, and there is no way a tight head prop should be in that position. I'm not gonna dig him out because it wasn't his fault. But there should be someone else in that position to defend that blindside rather than sighted prop. You're not built for that. You built the scrummage brilliantly as you did in the first half. So I was a bit frustrated. And then Ben maybe needs to go a bit lower, but yeah, it's frustrating.
Yeah, but it was and yeah, I thought, to be fair to Scott, I mean, I thought Ewan Lloyd looked a lot more comfortable than he did out in South Africa as well. So, praise Scarlets. They deserve the win. I'm not happy about it. I mean, I know I've got one of those jerseys, but that's actually my wife's.
No,
but
well, my partner's downstairs. She's a Scarlets fan as well, so the less I talk of praise about them, the better for me. Well, sorry, the other way around. The more praise I give them, the better for me.
Yeah. So I said, but I mean, I've sort of tried to avoid it as long as. So, as I mentioned, so we've had a couple of bits of Cardiff news. So I'm going to get the bad stuff out, which is the injuries list, and then we'll talk about the new signing afterwards. So, most of quite a lengthy injury list. Most of them, thankfully, are a few weeks. So I'll go through all the people who are due a few weeks. So you've got Kieran Azarati with the ankle injury picked up in Wales training. Shane Lewis-Hughes seems to have hurt his shoulder, and the Scarlets lost. Alan Summerhill has done his ankle. Josh Adams still recovering from a shoulder injury picked up in the quarterfinal. Owen Lane ribs, because Owen Lane can't go more than 3 weeks of being injured. I love him dearly, but I don't know how he seems to just pick up the most innocuous injuries all the time. I mean, he must be using the back at some point.
That one is the most bizarre one I've seen in a long time as well. Like, I've seen him walking around and he's talking about, hopefully soon. It just doesn't seem to be shifting, I think. So
I think sometimes with ribs, it's going to be like, because I dealt with a similar thing and it was sending me into back spasms whenever I sneeze or something. So I've had to do more recovery for that. Other than that, James Botham's got Josh Turnbull with a hamstring and a knee injuries respectively. So they should all be back in the next couple of weeks. Then we've got Gwilym Bradley's got a foot injury, and we have no idea on the timeline for that. Cabango's seen a specialist today, so that could be weeks, it could be months, but they seem to be, fingers crossed it's more weeks, but it looks more like months. And then Tulupe is definitely out for another 3 months. So very conveniently, he's going to be fine for Six Nations. Whether or not you should be playing Six Nations, another story, because maybe we do need to start looking at plans, plan B and plan C a bit more for our number 8s. So that's, I mean, it's nice
hard to drop one of the best 8s of the last decade, isn't it? Really, that's the problem.
I mean, it's the same with getting rid of Bigger at number 10. I mean, one of the big questions that's been asked through all the pods is, who should be playing 10? And obviously, Gatland, after the Barbados game, he name checked Ben Tomos. He's primarily a 12 for us, has played 15, has covered 10. I mean, he's probably could have done with more of a shot with Wales so far. He's called into a couple of squads and never really got more than a few minutes. Other than that, you've got ex-Cardiff alum Callum Sheedy, who's, depending on who you ask, either being brilliant or meh for Bristol. The question is, does Gatland try and get the PRB to agree to give Jared Evans an exemption? So I'd say they're the main Cardiff fingers in pies.
You've got one, which is Thomas Williams, but maybe we avoid that.
No, I don't want to think about it. No, he's a 9. Let our scrum half be a scrum half. We don't need a Morgan Parra.
So there's a few different ones there. The Jared Evans, I think, I'd be stunned if Gatland makes an exception for Jared Evans. And that is nothing against Jared Evans, the player. That is simply more, he's not been Gatland's man from day naught. So why now? And not now would only be desperation. And I don't think Gatland is one to show desperation for a start, but also that would be his first turn to, if he's going to make an exception. Then the other one is Cam Sheedy. Yeah, better season so far already. Last season didn't have the greatest season. At some points he was second choice. At some points he was third choice, even behind Tiff Eden. Was it the end of not last season before? He was starting to lose his place. People like Tiff Eden and then McGinty, etc. He started the season a lot better. It's good to see. Really positive. My claim to fame is I used to play against Capchi and missed a tackle against him. He scored another post, and it's not really a claim to fame, really, more of a claim to failure. Yeah, he's a top player. Callum, when he's got a go forward ball, he's a brilliant operator. The last of them, Ben Thomas. It's an interesting one because I think this comes down to one of the reasons why maybe the WIU initially tried to block the Tyler Sabir signing was they wanted to see Ben Thomas at 10. And Gatland sort of mentioned that. He alluded to that he wanted to see, he would try and mention it and see if they can get more chances for Ben Thomas at 10. Now, when you've got this WIU versus regional situation, or together, as they're trying to brand it together, it's going to be a carefully worded situation and how they're going to try and do that. I don't know if Cardiff would be on the board with it. Probably not. They don't seem to want to take Tyler Sabir off at any stage. We've seen 3 games so far. I don't know if I think Tyler's has played full 80 for all 3.
Yeah, as far as I can tell, I'll be honest, I could have pulled up the stats, but they're not really. I said the URC page doesn't really show player stats for the games, so you don't really get to have minutes played or anything like that. ESPN Scrum is basically bare minimum now, and I'm frankly too cheap to pay for an official stats page. So he hasn't. That's one thing. Maybe we go on to in a second, but just before we go with Ben Thomas, I feel like Cardiff would be more happy to have him as our main 10 had we kept someone like we've been able to keep someone like Max Llewellyn on the books. If we kept, because even with us being able to re-sign Halaholo, I don't know what the details are, and Ray Lilo, it's a very bare cupboard. And so Ben Thomas is going to have to be filling in a lot of 12 because we don't really have anyone else.
But that's a point, though. I think one of the other players Gatland name checked is Will Reid. Will Reid has been Dragons 10 since the day he came into the side, and he's not. But he's always been the 10. He's their 10. Bam, bam. This is what I think of him. Ben Thomas has been fighting fires for Cardiff since he came in. He played 15, he played 12. He's not a 15. Never. He's done a good job at 15. I'm not questioning that at all. He's just not the 15. He's played 12. I do actually quite like him at 12. But if they see him as a 10, he wants to be a 10, then I do think put your eggs in the basket, give him the shot, because this season there would never have been a better time than to back a young 10, than to say, right, it's going to be a tough season. We all know it's going to be a tough season. The expectation level is as low as it ever has been, if not lower. So we're going to back you, give you a shot, see how you go. And you've basically got carte blanche, and we're going to back you for 5-6 games. And that's basically what they've done with Tynus, or seems to be what they've done with Tynus. So if you're Wales and want to see Ben Thomas at 10, it's very, very, very frustrating, I'm sure. Because I don't see the situation changing, really. I don't know about you. It just doesn't seem to be one that Cardiff are going to... why would Cardiff back down now? Tynus has shown glimpses of what he's really talented and able to do. And he works bloody hard, fair play to the guy. But why would Cardiff change now from picking Tynus at 10?
I don't know, unless they call it, it's rotation. We want to see a different combination. Maybe they once said, we want to see Ben Thomas with Halaholo and Lilo outside and see how that is. But I'll be honest, that's one thing with Jockey I've found quite weird is he's been quite reluctant to substitute halfbacks at all. So obviously, Thomas Williams played the full 80 in the Dragons game. Bevans played the full 80 in the Benetton and thing game, even with Jamie Hill being fit. I understood when you had Matt Aubrey on the bench, he's more of a cover, he's more we sort of have him as more of an emergency cover 9 as opposed to a, maybe one we particularly want to start, then play many minutes. But it does seem, then we end up with the weird situation where we had Max Clark, we had a spare centre, we had put the spare centre and the spare back three, Jacob Beetham, but it was going to be Harry Millard before Summerhill pulled out. It's weird, and I feel like, if we went to the effort of signing Arwell Robson, why didn't he get up? Like, I felt like, for me, I said it on the main pod, like after the Benton game, you could see that Tinas had, was struggling to keep up with the intensity of URC level, because it is a step up from Currie Cup. Players who play in both leagues, some of the South Africans say, Currie Cup actually isn't quite as high as URC, even the way Welsh teams play it. So you could see he was legging, actually just bringing him on just for the injection of pace would have helped. And that's my opinion on Sharrett. I don't know if Sharrett's just basically trying to focus on one thing and he's trying to just slowly build aspects of the game, and maybe that's why we've got certain things in play. Like it seems like the backs aren't quite clicking. Nothing's really changing. I think we had a couple of nice sort of set moves, but then no real shape. One thing I found really weird as well is towards the end of last season, Rhys Carey, and the start of last season, Rhys Carey was being used at primary ball carrier a lot more, and it seems like it's fallen away again. And I feel like, if the whole USP of having a big player like Rhys Carey is he will just smash through walls. He showed in the Dragons game, he just basically smashed through. And, when he did get the ball against Scarlets, he smashed, he was able to get through. I'm surprised how low he is in the carrying stats so often. The weird thing is Tinas de Beer was not just the third highest Cardiff carrier, but the third highest carrier overall in that game. According to Rugby Pass, anyway. We don't want to carrying. You don't want your 10 carrying. You want him playmaking. If your 10's on the deck, and then you think, well, does that mean that Ben Tomos was doing a bit more distributing as a first receiver? But then it did look like he was being used that well. I think he made 7 passes, 5 carries himself, no kicks. Ray Lilo only had 1 carry, 1 pass. I don't know if that includes the one to Johan Lloyd. It's like Hugh of the Scarlets Fever pod. He suggested that Cardiff had become a 10-man rugby team, which is very non-Cardiff. Yeah, that's me. And actually, it's hard to disagree because a lot of our good stuff has been through the forwards, but I don't know if that's because they're laying a foundation and then the back stuff's going to come later. I've got faith it will. Jockey's worked wonders with us in the past, and our attacks always look good when he's been in and around.
Sorry, I thought as you were going to come, I was just going to jump in. I just thought, I did think it was going to be more free flowing. I agree with you with Jockey coming in. I thought it was going to be a bit more. I don't want to use this cliche, but laissez-faire. Throwing the ball around, having a bit of fun. Thought it was a bit more of that attitude. It hadn't quite been, but part of that has been the forward dominance. I think maybe that surprised a few people. Maybe keep it to what we know is strong. Then you've got the situation with to be a situation. I've mentioned that before. I don't quite get why Adwell hasn't had a look in. I like the look of him in pre-season. Always have liked him. In previous, I thought he was a really good player for the under-20s back in the day, etc. Then you've got the backs. The backs, it isn't clicking. That centre combination for the inconsistency of the centre combination is an issue. You've then got the added complication of a centre playing wing. Harry Millard is not the wing. He's not quite quick enough. He's a decent centre, and at one stage he looked like he could be a real good prospect at centre, but he's just not got that extra yard of pace that a Cabango does. I don't know the answer. In short, the carry thing is also interesting. He was last week talking about how he's been working hard to not just have, that was the old criticism of Carrick that he has 2 or 3 moments, but by 38 minutes he's blowing. But I do see a progression from him. I do see that has improved. But maybe, I don't know, without saying that, I want to say something that perhaps he's doing more of a flat line now, a higher flat line, but rather than this peaks and troughs situation, if that makes any sense. If you're thinking of his activity graph, maybe that's a bit harsh to say, because he still have these big moments, obviously tries, etc. But yeah,
I mean, in fairness to him, he had 78 minutes again. He's it's not like he's not. It's not like he's completely gone after like 40, 50 minutes, which actually South Africa have made it more popular to do that as a prop again. You don't actually have to be a Andrew Porter on for the full game. I think I'm interested to say about Harry Miller, because I always find Dan from Cardiff Rugby Life, he always says the exact opposite about Harry Miller, that he thinks he's more of a wing than a centre. But so hopefully with something that will do it is, for what Cardiff has signed a Tarty back, and for once actually it's necessary. If you listen to a lot of those injuries, most of them are in the back. A lot of them are in the back three. So Cardiff has signed Gabriel Hammer Webb. I'm guessing it's Hammer. It could be Hamer. So he's from Bath, who did a bit of a tour in Southland over in the NPC. Former England under 20s. He's got a Welsh man, so we don't have to worry about non-Welsh qualified status. I'm not saying throw him in for Cymru anytime soon. But it sounds like he's speedy. Andrew Ford was almost as quick as the lad is, getting a highlights video out for supporters. So I think for once actually a winger is exactly the sort of player we need at the moment.
Yeah, it's a sad situation, because you look at that start of the season, 4 wings who I really rate, or every single one of them, and that with Beetham as an additional 5th option. Lane, Adams are international class. Cabango showing that as a potential future. And I've always rated Summerhill. When it comes to finishing, and it's there to be done, he does it more often than not. And it's an issue at the moment without those wings. But I must be honest, I haven't seen much of Hammer Webb or Hammer Webb. Don't know much about him. Don't know how to pronounce his name even, which is, I think that shows partly ignorance, but also that he's coming as an unknown quality. And good luck to the lad. He may be thrown in the deep end quite early on with those back 3 injuries. Who knows? So I don't know if Beetham will be operated on, given a champ on the wing for next game, or they'll just throw the new signing in straight away.
No. Well, might go into some predictions for the team a bit later on, but as a specific request for Carwin as a reward for all his early mornings, thought we'd talk a little bit about WXV1. So Friday morning, 6 o'clock. Thankfully, the baby woke me up, so I was able to catch this one. I normally sleep in a little bit later on a Friday before going into work. But yeah, so Wales played Australia. Do you want to take the floor on this one?
Gonna sound shoulda, woulda, coulda is all I'm gonna say. It was there's similarities to the game in the World Cup, because in the World Cup, Eleanor Snowsill came out of that one and said Wales should have beaten Australia, and I agree with that. There was an opportunity there. It was there for the taking, but this time it was almost amplified. Wales are against 14 players, not men, as was sometimes said on certain commentaries. They were against 14 players, even 13 players for 10 minutes while there was a sin bin, and failed to get the job done. And it's not just that, it's the manner of the loss, because the driving maul was going so well all game. All 3 tries came through the driving maul, 2 hooker tries, 1 penalty try. You then get an opportunity with one of the best 50-22s you'll ever see, from Llake George in the 78th minute, I think, something like that. You know, she inside her own 10-meter line, smashes it. Grubbeck dribbles right into the 22, right in the heart of 22, get a driving ball, you throw the backs in, and Australia, fair play, got to hold your hands up. By hook or by crook, found a way of stopping that driving maul. For me, the turning point was a driving maul about 15 minutes earlier, where Wales are up by, I want to say, was it 19? I can't remember. They'd scored their third try by that point. Wales had scored their second try, sorry, I should have said. And they're up in the game. They get a driving maul, they drive about 15, 20 yards, and Australia swing up the side. And Holly Davidson, who I got to say, massively rated as a referee, in my opinion, got the decision wrong. Wales peel off, get pinged for holding on, but Australia have clearly swung up the side of that maul, dragged it down, got a penalty. They score off the back of it. They then go the other end and score through some brilliant attacking play. Fair play Australia. They threw the ball around. They really did show some brilliant touches. But
I think the worst thing was Australia were down to 13 at this time as well. That's
Yeah.
They had a red card and then lost the second player due to conceding the penalty try.
yeah,
But I mean, as one thing that people seem to neglect is when you've got similar to that Wales England game. So to bring back to men's, but where we were up to 12. England down to 12. Admittedly, that was only for about 2-3 minutes, of which England managed to kill an awful lot of that time. And the big issue is if you haven't got the ball, you can't make use of a one-man advantage. You can defend a little bit easier, but if the backs are making line breaks, you almost can't tell.
yeah. But that's part of the problem as well with Wales at the moment. And you spoke about 10-player rugby a minute ago. That's Wales' problem. Wales at the moment are playing 10-player rugby with Jazz Joyce doing, what Jazz Joyce does, and brilliant defensive displays and getting smashed in the chops and still carrying on playing brilliantly. But Wales need to find a way of getting these backs involved, because some of these backs are brilliant players. Karis Cox was brilliant on debut against USA. She was superb. Lisa Neumann I think it is Neumann. She is. I always confused if she's Neumann or Newman. Neumann. She's a brilliantly attacker. If you've ever seen her try from the end of last season, go watch it on YouTube. It's one hell of a try. You've then got Hannah Jones, captain, who's defensively really works bloody hard. Karen Lake as well, defensively works incredibly hard. But they need to find a way of getting them involved in the game a bit more against these top sides, because there is a little bit that their front pack is so dominant, but they struggle to get that extra threat out wide. And Australia managed to just pull at those strings, and eventually they broke. Honestly, I think this is such a missed opportunity for Wales, because the WXV, people have been talking about, should Wales be in WXV2? Should they, yes, be honest, should they be in WXV2 because they might have been able to compete against that? I don't think they do. They need to be in WXV1 because they've earned the right to be there. They've beaten the Scotlands, they've beaten the Italies, they've proven why they should be there. And this was the opportunity to just rubber stamp it and say, yeah, bang, we are a member of the top 6, top 5 elite. And they've missed that opportunity, in my opinion. I'm just really frustrated for the girls, because you can see their faces at the end of the game. They were crestfallen beyond belief. And at the end of the day, you do have to come out of this WXV and say it's a missed opportunity, but also a bit of a poor performance. And I think there has to be some questions answered, because that New Zealand performance wasn't good enough, losing by that many points. That would have been a shock to them. The Canada performance, I think the second half, the way that Wales, I don't want to use the word, not quite capitulated, but fell away as much as they did. I think that would have been a disappointment. And then at the end of the day, not seeing it through against 14 players, that has to be something that's going to be looked at and has to be reviewed, and I'm sure it will be. I'm not. Bjorn Cunningham's done a stellar job, and I'm sure he will continue to do a stellar job. But I think there has to be some learnings taken from this tournament because it hasn't been the performances that were required or desired. That's my rather more strongly worded than I thought I was going to be on it.
Yeah,
but yeah, that's my opinion.
I agree with you in a lot of that, and I had, it's a thought that I've been mulling over, and it kind of reminds me of Georgia sort of around 2015, where they had that sort of pack that would bully most weaker sides, but then there wasn't really anything to, when they got up, if a pack could, get the better of them, or at least have parity. I mean, Australia got the nudge on them quite a few by the end of the game. And I think at one point it was when they only had 7 players in it. It's, and Wales need that extra. They've basically got one move, and then if the scrum on the line out doesn't work, then they're buggered. And I think part of that comes from, with all best will in the world, Young Cunningham is a forwards coach, so he's going to do forwards brilliantly. So what we need really is to have. Maybe what we need to do is bring in a really good attacking coach or backs coach to come in and work with them. I have no answers who that should be. I'll hands up. I don't know who. I mean, I have a similar thing with the under-20s. I feel like Mark Jones shouldn't have left the under-20 setup. I think he should be given more development role. I mean, the weirdest thing is the Ospreys' defence seems to be looking a bit more leaky, but their attack's better when they hired an attack coach as a defence coach. I make of that we will, but I said weirdly, Osprey seemed to have turned into Cardiff, and Cardiff turned into a pale imitation of Ospreys over the pre-season. But that's neither here nor there. I think there's so much talent in those players. Like you do want to see them do more. I mean, the Six Nations is going to be a good test because Scotland really kicked up a gear.
Yeah,
so I think this should be an Ireland actually for that matter. I thought Ireland showed that they got the cutoff wrong and how they decided who went into WXV 1, 2, and 3. Like almost the playoff that Scotland had to do against Spain. Really, it should be Ireland, Spain. I think, judging by that, and Scotland getting through automatically because they seemed to, they were doing full squad rotations every game and still putting 50 points on. It helps that they had all the main paid players from Ireland. Their 7 stars. They were all. They were actually available, which I don't know if that's going to happen in the Women's Six Nations this year. They're actually going to be available. I know that's something some of the other podcasts I listen to from over the Irish Sea, they're slightly worried about. Well, I'd like to say at least I feel like Wales were closer against Canada and Australia than they were in the World Cup, and then New Zealand, it was just horrid. And I don't know if that's just one of those results you just say, don't know what went wrong, park it. Let's focus on the next thing. But I think one thing we want to see the Six Nations is, just see an attacking game develop outside, and maybe with Lakey George basically coming through, and basically not quite fully coming up in a professional environment, but having a lot more time in a professional environment than Ellen Snowsill, Robin Wilkins has had. Maybe just to see if that, as well as her brilliant kicking game, again, start bringing in more of the attack.
Yeah, I think that's the big thing. You mentioned coaching there. Someone that had a huge influence wasn't it Myler came in as a kicking coach for a bit. Initially Wales couldn't kick really with any distance or any, and then you've seen Lakey George has been able to do it before. That is talent as well as coaching. I'm not just saying that anything, but she's definitely improved her kicking as a result. And Snowsill and Robin Wilkins both drastically improved their kicking. The crossfield kick has been a huge weapon for Wales, and Wales has operated on that. But Wales are going to that because their handling hasn't been quite what's been desired. I personally, I don't know about the Six Nations. I do see Scotland have improved. Italy are going to be strong. Ireland, if they've got the 7 stars, they're a completely different beast. But I want Wales to push on. I maybe it was a little bit of hope rather than anything else, because don't forget, losing to Canada, was it a couple of seasons ago? In the autumns, Wales were against 14 players and lost the game quite comfortably in the end against Canada.
Yeah.
And I thought by now Wales would be closer. But perhaps that honeymoon kick that Wales have had of becoming professional is now starting to just wane a bit. And then it's about how do you burst through the next level? How do you continue to improve and become that, was it the Nigel Walker line, isn't it? The best, not the best nation in the world, but the best training in the world, the best setup in the world, the best women's organisation in the world. So we're not there yet. So how do we get there? And I think that's the question that's got to be asked in order to grow the game further, because there's the want there from the players. They've definitely bought in. They are putting everything in. But in that tournament, I think their expectation wasn't reached. I think that's a fair summation to make. And but how can they meet that expectation in the future?
Yeah, absolutely. I think you've covered pretty much everything there. So
yeah, when are we starting on professional side in Wales? When can we get that one? Let's move on before I have another rant.
Yeah. Before we preview the next weekend's game, so the rap accounts put out a call for listeners' questions. Unfortunately, we couldn't get through as many as you'd have liked. So there was one specific one I'd like that we got asked, and it's: can Wales win Europe in 5 years? And
can Wales or can Cardiff?
Can Cardiff?
You said can Wales?
Can Wales? Yeah, that's how low my expectations are. First, no. So yeah, sorry. Yeah, can Cardiff? I feel that's too funny to even edit out now. Yeah, so can Cardiff? And so my initial thought was, well, yeah, of course we could. Do we? Do I think we will? That's another story. We're building a lot. We're having to build from scratch. I mean, if you're staying Europe as in a Challenge Cup, we're the only Welsh side to have won any European trophies. But then we've never got into the playoffs in the league. So make what you will of that. I mean, off pod, you had some interesting thoughts, namely around a topic we've already discussed. We're quite lacking in, and that's the centres. Would you like to kick off with your thoughts on that?
Is this the? Yeah. I don't know where that next crop of centres is coming from. Really, you've got your Grady, got your Ben Tomos if he's going to play there, and you could say, yeah, that's your centres sorted. But then you need 4 centres to go through a European competition, at least, really, because there's going to be an injury at some stage, at least one. You're probably going to lose the other at another stage, and that's before we get into the discussion of, in my opinion, 12 to 12 and 30 to 13, and you shouldn't be switching them between the two positions. Max Llewellyn was a huge loss. You mentioned it earlier. I don't see that next player quite at Cardiff at the moment. That next centre coming through. Maybe I'm missing something, and please, listener, point out if I am. But the next player to come through to really, Halaholo and Vilo have been brought back. That wasn't planned. I don't think. I'd like to think it wasn't planned, because otherwise it does look like a bit of a mess. But they've been brought back because there aren't enough talent that they could get from other pools, but also that there is at the club currently. And in 5 years' time, can Cardiff win Europe? Not in their current guys, no. I don't think so. I think there are certain areas where Cardiff are strong. I think you look at loose head, that's strong Domachowski and Carey, that's a strong pairing of loose heads. You look at back row has always been a strength of Cardiff and is continuing to be so. I think the fullback situation is good for years to come with Beetham and Winnett. And the back three as a whole, actually. I know currently we've got the injuries, but Lane, Adams, Cabango, those are 3 very strong wingers. Centres will be one of those that concerns me.
Yeah, I mean, I said, and you've got surprised that's from the rags, Derry Cross hasn't been called up, and he's scoring tries of fun at the Premiership level.
Yeah.
I mean, I think it's a bit of a problem because normally your first instinct is to go down and look at who's playing for the Rags and see is anyone showing out. But I mean, Jason Harries has basically been filling in both centre roles for them so far this season, and that in itself is quite worrying. As much as I like as much as I like Bus as he was the rail replacement Bus, as he sort of got unfairly nicknamed for the amount of times he'd come in for Owen Lane.
Yeah,
He's he's getting he's at the end. He's towards the latter end of his career, not the new one. I mean, it was quite nice because the under-20s had some very nice centres. Unfortunately, none of them have come from Cardiff. You've got the likes of Hennessy and Bryn Bradley, who, people might correctly point out, they came through the Cardiff pathway. I went, yeah, but they're not here now.
yeah.
And it's as much as I like, thinking about, the likes of, your Sheedies, your Yohan Lloyds, your Rhys Emmets, who started off coming through Cardiff. The fact is that they, Emmanuel Faye-Waboso, they left. I mean, there are various reasons for them, all of them equally valid. But, if we haven't got access to them now, if you can't get them from academy, when budgets are tight, if you've got to have to bring these players in after they've been playing Premiership level or they've been playing for another region, it's going to cost more. And I mean, that's for me one of the. I think that's I could do a full pod on just the cap, how the rules around the cap law. Not so much the cap law itself, but all the minutiae of getting around it. I think actually it's probably worse. It make the situation a lot worse for Welsh rugby.
Yeah, there's
that bringing players back.
Yeah, sorry, I was just going to say that Wales Investigates program that was it a week and a half ago, 2 weeks? No, almost 2 weeks to the day, isn't it? Now that came out, and talking about all the players that have left to the academies in England, and Cardiff seem to almost most of the big talents that have come through. Most of them have come through the Cardiff or schools system. You talk about your LRZs, you talk about your Christ Joneses. You mentioned a couple of there with Yohan Lloyd, Sheedy as well. It's not worrying as such, because you would think Cardiff being the capital city, they have the biggest player pool, etc., etc. Some of these players are going to go, but some of these players have been identified as a talent for a long time. You talk about Lewis Emmets. He was identified as a talent for a long time. Yohan Lloyd was identified as a talent a long time ago. Sheedy went to Millfield, and there's not much you can do to compete against your Harpers and Millfields, granted, but Cardiff are almost suffering as a byproduct of the colleges system struggling to keep hold of these players. Not that that's anything new. You talk about best player, one of the best players of all time, one of the Cardiff legends, Gareth Edwards, went to Millfield. But it's about how do you get those players back, and now those players aren't coming back. They're staying. They're not coming back home for this homecoming and playing for your home region, because there isn't that same feel about it, or they have more opportunities and they're given these opportunities straight away in the Premiership to compete in one of the best leagues in the world, or perceived best leagues in the world, and they take it. And I can't fault them for doing so, but how then do you get those talents to stay? It's a really difficult one, and I don't envy anyone involved in that academy system, Griff Rees and all those, to try and keep these players here, because it must be really difficult when you've got Hartbury knocking on the door. It's like the it's not quite the same, but it's like the league coming down to the South Wales valleys in the 70s and 80s and saying, right, we want your Pontypool front row, we want your XYZ. It's similar, not quite made to that extent, but it must be difficult to ward these players up, ward these colleges up.
I think actually maybe it is to that extent, because I mean the root cause of it, same as the league drain all those years ago, is money. Jones, I don't know how true it is. This might just be broken hearsay, in which case I'm saying this is what I've heard, and I'm not in any way saying it's fact. But Exeter said you can come to the academy and we'll pay your university tuition. Cardiff allegedly had a similar deal with Emmanuel Faye-Waboso because he wanted to get into medicine, but unfortunately Cardiff University at the time, he didn't quite get into there, so he got into Coventry, which is why he went to the Wasp Academy before he went bust, and then went down. Is now with Exeter Chiefs and pulling up trees there. Actually, most of the Welsh contingent in Exeter are doing really well. Again, allegedly Cardiff started to do some work with Hartpury to say, try and get like a dual thing, so they contribute some money, so they go to Hartpury, do the studying and using all their facilities, and then they'd come back, train with the academy, and then be available. I don't know how true that is, how that's worked since if COVID's completely lost that, but Josh Adams is someone who got lost to Scarlets. Lee from Rap and Scarlets Fever has said in many different forms. Some of them to the anger of people in power. I won't go anything further than that, but about how the Scarlets Academy isn't maybe working as well as it could. And you see with Scarlets, they basically ended up getting rid of a lot of their players to like Jersey or Cornish Pirates, and then getting them back. And then you're thinking, if you can get an academy lad in on like a low contract, great. But then if he goes back, becomes established, and then comes back, he's not going to say, "Oh no, I'm not taking academy money." Yeah. And again, I think it's that thing, and how much more it would cost to get Josh Adams back from Worcester when we first signed him to. Yeah, it was Worcester he was playing at the time, wasn't it?
Yeah, he was Premiership top try scorer at Worcester. So
I imagine he's come in a lot more now and experienced international than if you'd sign. He brought him up through academy, and eventually he probably would have been on the same money regardless. But you've gotten that. But then the question is, would he have been the same player? And
yeah.
That's neither here nor there.
There's a lot to be said about that, isn't there? And the opportunities, Josh Adams, one of the reasons he left was he wasn't getting the opportunities, and he was competing against like Steph Evans, who was getting the opportunities younger. Don't forget, Steph Evans was seen as one of the fresh new kids on the block that was going to be the star of the future. He was scoring tries against Scotland that were exquisite. But
and then I think it was like one bad defensive display, and then. Which sometimes again, that's all it is, or I don't know. I don't know behind the scenes. I think
we've gone to Scarlets territory.
Going back to summarise the original question, I think neither of us are particularly optimistic about Wales winning a European trophy in the next 5 years.
No,
but who knows? Don't rule it out. I wasn't expecting 2018.
Yeah, wasn't expecting the time before that. So there we go. They thought we are going to win one. That's basically saying it, isn't it? If you don't expect a title, then therefore it's going to happen now. That's the MO.
Yeah, I think the other ongoing question constantly is about the investment, the new investors.
Yeah.
Again, don't know anything. There's a lot of hearsay about being Gulf oil barons and Dubai-based British businessmen. Until we see more, it's just speculation, and there's no point dwelling on that.
Yeah, would love to add something. I have no further information to add at all. I think Lynn gave as much information as we can at the moment on the last week's pod. People want to listen to that. Lynn Gleister talking about what she knows from it, but nothing more to add really.
Yeah, so I think that's all I've got. All the questions I've seen. Apologies if I happen to miss anyone out. If you do want to ask us any questions, feel free to use the Facebook page. I think the Twitter's. We've got the Twitter as well. I don't know if we've bothered with any other social media because I don't use anything other than Twitter and Facebook because I am about 50 years older than my 31-year-old body says it is.
There is an Instagram account, but like Harley, I am not the best at using Instagram, so I will try my best to get my head around it a bit more.
So I think we've held off long enough, like Damocles' sword above our heads. So this weekend, Friday night, our first Friday night fixture. I missed Friday Night Cap. Unfortunately, I'm missing Friday Night Cap again because there's no way I'm getting up to it with the M5 traffic, unfortunately. But we're facing the Bulls.
Yes.
So just to sort of say where the balls have come from. So they started off with a very comprehensive win over the Scarlets. That was a very comprehensive win over the Scarlets. I won't go into what. Then lost to Ulster on the road before what started off as quite a tight game versus Ebra became very much a blowout. So they've sort of that first week lull of their 4-week tours seems to have gone washed away already. Last time out, we were in the lead up until about, if I remember rightly, so sort of like up to about the 65th minute. Then Bismarck Duplessis came on and just absolutely beasted our pack single-handedly, and we ended up not even getting a match point out of it. So what are your thoughts?
Not optimistic is it, which anyone who's listened to many episodes of this won't be surprised. But Bulls looked really strong against Scarlets. I must admit I haven't seen the other two games, but they were so dominant against the Scarlets in that game. And you just look at it practically terms, if they're that dominant against the Scarlets and Cardiff have just lost to said Scarlets, doesn't bode well. But at home, Cardiff Arms Park, we've seen a lot of brilliant surprise victories from Cardiff in the past. Leinster, Sale, to name just a couple from the last season. So it's possible. We've seen the South African side tire and perform worse as their European tour goes along. Anyone saw the Sharks up in London would have testified to that because it wasn't their best performance in the Ospreys. But I do think this is going to be too far for Cardiff right now. And I don't mean that in any way derogatory, but it is a young side that it's going to be learning its ways. And this this Bulls side is a very strong Bulls side, and there's a lot of good feeling in South Africa at the moment, and they are one of the sides that's bouncing off it. Still must be in the other one, which look really up for it as well. But yeah, I'd say a losing bonus point or 2 losing bonus points is a really good result from this weekend. I do mean that. Maybe that's a bit harsh, but I think this Bulls side are just a bit too far for us at the moment. I'd say the same for all the regions. To be fair, though, I think the Bulls would be too far.
Yeah, I think that I think the thing that Dragons accidentally showed with the fact that they had the 4 second rows in their pack is, if you've got a big mighty pack, Cardiff still, if you're a similar built pack, Cardiff can just about get the edge on. But if you've got a lot of weight behind your front row, you're gonna, you should be able to cause them. And then they've got some very electric backs. I mean, I'll take us being nilled if they leave us Heineken, their Welsh qualified 8, because he looks very handy, and we are slightly short on them.
Has that been confirmed yet that he is Welsh qualified?
I don't care if it's good enough for the PRB. Again, similar to our new angel Gabriel. As long as the PRB are convinced he's Welsh qualified, he doesn't have to go up to play for Wales as long as it gets through all the red tape, so that he can actually play. We can sign him. I'm happy. I think, especially given the injuries and where they are, I think it's not being close to a first choice back 3 aside from Winnett, really. That's going to hold us in bad stead. The back 5 is looking a bit threadbare. We're going to have, we're going to have 2 out and out. It looks like we're probably going to have 2 out and out second rows in the second row starting, because I think that with the injury to Shane Lewis Hughes, he's going to, which as well as being unfortunate after your wonderful article you posted today, it's we're going to have that. One player not on the list was Mackenzie Martin. I think I saw him. He was a travelling reserve for the last couple of games, so it'd be nice to have Big Mac back. But it's still quite young. Thomas Young and Alice Jenkins are still going strong. So we've still got some experienced leaders in the pack. Even if it is a little bit too soon to bring Turnbull back. So as I said, Tamani looked great. So it's he's going to be a huge help in us at least getting parity up front.
Go on.
I said, and then we're gonna have a couple of Wales players back, so we're gonna have great. In theory, Grady should be back. Thomas Williams and Domachowski. I don't know about you. I'm not sure I necessarily throw them straight back in. Unless I know Thomas Williams is Thomas, and he was so good against Dragons, but I also think Ellis Bevan was quite good, and it'd be nice just to see us put the start, as close to the starting 15 out again, just to try and build some cohesion. Obviously, we're going to have to make changes because 2 of the starting players last time out are injured, but I'd quite like to try and keep consistency and then maybe shuffle them a bit later on down the line.
I'm going to disagree. I personally think there's so few times that we are going to get to see the best players play for Cardiff this season, take advantage of it. Those 2 players, I don't know what Gatland's plans are with Grady long term, but he's going to be, he's a big, powerful running centre. You saw his moment. He did have a moment for Wales against the Barbars where he's broken down the wing, beating 2 or 3 tacklers, and he just looks the real deal when he's in full flight. And Tomos is the real deal. I'd start both of those. I'd probably start Carey. Actually, I think he's deserved to start ahead of Domachowski and give him a start ahead of Domachowski and sort of flip it from the Dragons game just to give them an opportunity to keep on fight that Carey says that up until Europe they can fight it out and then see who's on top when it comes to Europe time. The other changes, second rows without Turnbull as well. I suppose that is going to be the obvious thing. Whether it's Timani in there or maybe a Thornton, or maybe even a Teddy. Teddy might come back and play.
Of course, Teddy. I forgot about Teddy. I think
I have until this moment as well. Yeah. No, I'd be happy to see Teddy in there. I think he played well for Wales. I think, and he played well against the Dragons in the key moment, especially with his good hands. So I'd give him a shot in the second row, and then I got to be honest, at 8 I quite liked Seb at 8, and I also quite liked Tamai at 8. So I wouldn't be against that. I do pre-season form though. Mackenzie was brilliant. So looking to the future, whether or not you want to try him in and out sooner rather than later might be a shout as well.
Yeah, I mean, I said this is where I was that bad I forgot about Teddy Williams, because that actually does make it a little bit easier, because I do think you need. I feel like you need to have either Tamani or Teddy at tight head lock, really, and then you can afford to put Seb at if you've got both, then you can put Tamani at 8, Teddy at 5, and then have Seb at 4 and the loose head lock, and Matt's actually going to help the loose head side of the scrum as well. I mean, I think Alex Mann as well. I don't know if he is actually heavier than Dennis Jenkins, but I found the 2 games where he's played, actually the loose head side just stayed up a lot more solid. I mean, I think that's part of that's just he's an out and out blindside flanker. And also I know they swap around depending where they are on the field, but it does work quite well. And then you keep Rory Thornton on the bench, and you've still got that's a decent rotation. Or you could have 2 back row. You could go for 2 back rowers. I mean, if you're not going to bother changing your 10, you might as well go 6-2. That's one thing as well.
With Thomas Williams on the park, you can play 10 anyway, don't you?
Yeah, exactly. You got him. You got Ben Thomas who covers fullback. I mean, just go for an 8-0. Just swap the entire pack halfway through. Full on pre-season vibes. But I don't know. Talking through it, I mean, it does sound like the 23 does sound like it potentially could be a bit stronger than we initially started. I think, so what are we looking at? Guessing Kerry, Belcher, and Litterick again. You start front row. Seb and Teddy, second row. Then we go Mann, Young, Timani. I guess bringing in Handsome Tom. I mean, I'd quite like to see Ellis Bevan given another go. Thomas on the bench and use him as an impact. But I think that's a flip of a coin for me. I think if you got one or the other, it doesn't matter. But maybe I actually use them. I think Sharrat's going to keep with Tina, so there's no point even arguing about that. Ben Thomas, do we go Ben Thomas and Grady again, or do we go? Because that'll be centre combination 4, or do we start Lilo and have Grady on the bench to bring him on for impact? I think you want to keep him on.
I'd go Tinus. I'd go Thomas and Grady personally, but it's also a look to the future. I think.
Or do you go
we talked about Europe before. These two need to play together if they're going to be the starting centre pairing. So that would be my no time like the present discussion.
I mean, the other option is Grady starts on the wing, which he has done. He has done for us in the past as well as covering. If we're that short in the back three, and then you're looking at Harry Millard's going to be on there. Cameron at fullback, and then it's either going to be Grady or Beetham, I guess.
Yeah, that is where the turnover's been, isn't it? You look back, season and a half, you had Hallam Amos with Lane and Adams, and with both of those injured.
Such a good back three, though. I always thought Hallam Amos was such an underrated player. Like even when he was playing for the Dragons, I thought he was fantastic. And I think the big issue is the only ever times he got a good, a game at 15, which was definitely his best position for Wales, was like the bronze medal match, which didn't matter, and then I think another game which it was with like no starting players, and he never really had a chance. And then his other games are like the horror hat trick of disallowed tries against Uruguay, and
he also had that tour out in Argentina where he performed quite well.
He got given a run at fullback, and actually he showed he could be a fantastic fullback. And I think certainly in Gatland's and maybe Pivots as well, he was the sort of obvious success of the Halfpenny and Williams, and then he realised, hang on, I could get battered. I could get battered, or for the same money, I could get battered by Patience and become a GP and end up on a lot more money and be, and actually be able to walk in my 50s. So, who's the fool?
Yeah, I gutting, but I can't fault the decision, to be honest.
I think it's one of those decisions where the career outside of Wales outside of professional rugby is definitely more lucrative. Yeah. I think with what I do, it's probably about a par. I think it's got about. I think as an academic researcher, I probably have about the same lifespan. If you want to say professional rugby player, and contracts are about the same length as well. But less of why I'm leaving academia. That again is another pod in itself.
Yeah, I feel before we get into this, there's a moment where I say at least you're on a contract, and then we all get into starting these sort of discussions. Yeah, freelance life isn't for all the people.
Yeah. Let's not. Yeah, I don't want to think about freelancing. Like no. So, predictions then. So you say I think I agree. I think two losing bonus points would be good. I think good. I mean, if we could sneak a win, better. But I think two. I think we've got on the Rat Pod. I predicted Bulls by 15. I can't quite convince myself that we'll get much of that, but might get 4 tries in that. And frankly, I've been wrong on every Cardiff prediction so far. I hope I haven't jinxed the jinx there with that. So
yeah, the weird one isn't the weather meant to be pretty horrendous on Friday? I was thinking about that, and if almost every other season, if you'd told me weather's going to be bad for Cardiff, I'd thought, well, that's not good news for Cardiff. I actually think it's good news for Cardiff. I think bad weather is what could help. Keep it tight. I know it's a strong Bulls pack, but this Cardiff pack has shown that it's strong, and yeah, it's a big test. Don't get me wrong, and all that sort of stuff. But I fancy keeping it tight. 25-19, something like that would be possible, and I think acceptable result. I don't think that's one where you go, oh God, we were terrible on the weekend. I can't believe we lost. I think that's when we go, okay, lost the Bulls at home. they're a very strong side. There we go. Park it, move on. Let's look at the week after. And I think that's going to be a lot of what the Regions are going to have to do against the South African sides this year, especially away from home. We saw that from the Scarlets. So, yeah. If a win comes, and that's brilliant. But I'm more on the side of let's see if the pack can stand up to that pack and hope for the best.
Yeah, I agree. I said I'm still going to be with my much harsher 15-point loss, but I mean, if at least we can show that things have built, if the pack has parity, great, and if we can at least show the back line clicking more. I did once or twice against the Scarlets, not convincingly, but it clicked, and then wrong options were taken. So if maybe the right option gets taken this time, and we score a decent try from open field and not just crashing over or driving maul, and then a couple of driving maul tries, be quite happy with that. I think the problem is the balls. I mean, it certainly was the case last season, the season before. They had like one of the tallest back fives, and every single one of that back five was a line out jumper option. And we don't have the same. Like, I think Dan, I keep mentioning Dan from Card Rugby Life. If you don't follow him already, but listen to this pod, follow him. He's brilliant. And he knows his onions, that guy. Hopefully this is an informative advert, Dan, if you're listening to come on the pod, I think. I'd love to have a chat with you. I enjoy it whenever we have it in the pack bar. But yeah, pointing out that Seb Davis really was our only line out option for Scarlets. I mean, I thought it was a bit hard. I felt like Shane Lewis Hughes is kind of, because he has, he did grow up through the age grades as a second row, but maybe it's because he's more of a secondary option. You might put in the back. Obviously, Tamani, he has gone up in the line out, but he isn't really a line out option. He's very much, we signed him more as we get the ball into midfield and he crashes it up off the line out, which again is where, he probably makes a decent number 8. Alex Mann, I don't know. I can't see why he wouldn't be a line out option. If maybe he's just not built into the system yet, but I think that's the thing. I thought was a bit of an issue for Wales at times as well, where it wasn't obvious who, if your main line out option is constantly being marked, who else have you got as a backup? It's not like Tipperick, who somehow could just get up higher than anyone. We don't really have a banker ball guy.
Last week, Falcao was a huge loss, wasn't it? Really, he's a good lineup. He doesn't do it often, but when he does do it, it's a good option. The Alex Mann thing, I know I have seen him up in the lineup a lot for the Wales under-20s. He was, so I think he is capable of doing it. But so you may be right on the systems approach, whether it's not quite getting there. Yeah, and getting the trust as well.
Yeah,
you've got that trust has got to be earned, and if you're a hooker and you've got a call coming and you're 5 meters from your own line, who are you going to go with? Are you going with the guy you've been training with week in, week out for 3-4 seasons, or are you going with the new guy?
Part of that's on the corner as well, mate. Not just the
no, but both.
Both. Seb.
Yeah,
but yeah, and it takes trust. As being the jumper in your lifters. I mean, that's one thing. One of the few things I'm working on with training at the moment is lifting. So having the jumper trust me to get him up in the air, and also me going up and trusting that I can stay in, completely stood up in one position without like freaking out and falling, collapsing on the poor lad who's just started in front of me, or my feet going back into one of the other second rows faces. That people always make it out as if a line out's an easy fix, and you're thinking, and then you start doing something, you're like, oh, actually, no, this is not easy. It's definitely not how I can do that. Yeah, I think probably a slightly more pessimistic look at on the Bulls game, but again, I think that's just a reflection of where we are. And Matt Sherritt said at the start during pre-season, this season is going to be a tough one for Cardiff fans, and we've just got to sort of grin and bear it, and hopefully we get the fruits of that next season, and maybe some of them not till the season after. But there's positives from every game, and we haven't had a performance yet where it makes you question the players, which it has happened in the past. So that's something I think we've got to take from. Notice when I was talking about the team, I didn't talk about the bench because I don't think Sherritt does the thing. But I think again that the bench front row picks itself because we've only got one other tight end prop available. We've only got one. Or saying that's the point because we've obviously signed. Was it Mark Jones? He was ex Scarlets from Jersey.
David. Oh, I want to say. Is it Hughes? Or was it? Yes, Hughes.
David Hughes. Yes, sorry.
Yeah.
I
couldn't remember. It's David Hughes or David Jones.
It's David Hughes. Yeah, sorry. I feel really bad for forgetting that one. But yeah, so okay, he might come in over Ethan.
I personally would stick with Evan. I really like him.
Yeah.
I think he's a brilliant impact player. He always does well to get a turnover or something. And I'm surprised he hasn't had more of a look in before. Actually, in previous seasons. So no, I'd give him stick with him a bit, and that's nothing against Davies. He's played well for the Scarlets in the past, but yeah, personally, I'd stick with Evan.
Yeah, I mean, he kind of not like an exact like for like with Derry, but he does. There's something about him, like the way he conducts himself on the pitch. It's very Derry like, and it's very much. No, I'm the man. I'm gonna go through and smash. Which I think talking about like streetwise packs, we haven't had people in the pack who are just like, no, I'm the shit. Like I'm gonna mess you up, and I think it's something Welsh rugby's needed.
Yeah, a word that would have been used perhaps 10, 15 years ago that isn't used now, alpha, it comes to mind, really, isn't it? That sort of...
I mean, it gets used a lot by a certain former Wales captain on comms.
Yes.
But yes, definitely. It's, and then Thornton on the bench, whether it's Ellis Jenkins or Mackenzie Martin, depending on which way he wants to go. And then whichever one of Ellis, Bevan, Thomas Williams you don't add. I would like to see Harwell Robs. I would quite like to see him at least play a bit. If it's not, then I mean, if you're not going to use him, maybe it's right you don't pick him. And then I'd probably put a centre in. So yeah, basically if you're starting
Lilo.
Yeah, if you're starting Grady, put Lilo on. Or, I mean, even Halaholo, I'd probably. And if you have Halaholo there, then you've got at least the option of moving Ben Thomas in. But
I think Max. I'd be surprised if it's not Max Clark and Lilo on the bench, or Grady, depending on who starts at 30.
Well, unless he goes
whether that's right or wrong, that's just my guess. That's what's going to happen. I'd like to see, as you said, I'd like to see Adwell somewhere in that 23.
Yeah, I just want to see someone. I just want to see something different. I mean, we can't really get there's not really many back three players we can stick on the bench. I think all the fit ones we're suggesting we start. So unless you have both Beetham and Winnett on the wings, then move Ben Thomas back.
Or a guy who's been there 3-4 days. That's one hell of a challenge to come in against the Bulls.
I mean, he's looking mighty fine in the stash. To be fair to him, that was a good photo of him in his training gear. I think unless there's anything you want to fill off.
I think I'm all covered. I suppose we should say how emotional it was to see Lee Harpenny leave as a former Cardiff alumni. But yeah, it was an emotional departure, and as frustrating as that game was for Cardiff fans, Scarlets fans, Scarlets coaches, as quoted Dwayne Peel, it was a fitting end for him to be able to go in that way. And I thought, all the hubbub around it, part of that for a minute, and his emotional goodbye was that, an emotional goodbye, and justifiably one. I think he deserved that chance to say goodbye, even if, in the words of Alan and Jones, it may have been tokenism.
But I mean, yeah,
I've quoted to avoid giving an opinion quite a few times.
Yeah, it's quite. Yeah, I'm make the most of it. I mean, if you learn these tricks doing journalism, I suppose. I'm ready to be hoisted by my own petard. But yeah, it was quite nice because I was adamant I wasn't going to watch it. I wasn't going to do anything for it, and then I couldn't read it because it was like that's halfpenny's last game. It's tips. Last big in the same Alvin Jones. They haven't confirmed it. Potentially Lydiates. I mean, there's still a door open. He's not ruled himself out. I've made my opinion clear on how I feel Lydiate goes in the international game at the moment. Anyway, but it was nice to see Halfpenny. Like watch it back, and Halfpenny basically had a full career highlights reel with the game you played because there was fantastic defensive lines. He had a nice run up the wing. There was some beautiful kicks, and 100% kicking as well. It was everything, all the best bits I loved of it. All right, maybe not so much the exciting youngster from his Cardiff days, but I mean the Halfpenny I loved was that dependable guy at fullback, and the guy who for me defines what I want my fullback to be playing for, whether it's for Cardiff or Wales, is just a dependable person who's good on the high ball, fantastic kicking game, can distribute. I'm not too bothered about my fullback not scoring 100 tries every season if he's setting up the tries for the wingers. I don't mind a player isn't scoring tries or is necessarily no attacking threat if he's coming into the attacking line and he's distributing and doing other things. But so, I mean, for me, first and foremost, dependability at the back. I thought Alun Jones had a good game. I think it was a bit tokenism to use Alun Jones' own words for him to be player of the match. I thought Georgia North was probably the best player by far. That day, who just seemed to be like, I understand the assignment. It's have fun. I'm going to do what I want. I'm going to run at that guy. I'm going to chuck a ball between my legs. I'm going to have a fantastic day. And good on him. Thomas Williams at 10 is an experiment I never want to see again. I don't think it's bad, but I'm having nightmares over that goal line restart. Where he basically went, hang on, I'm going to try and do a Sunday. I'm going to do a quick one. Oh, and I've kicked it straight into the Barbars player.
That wasn't even the one that annoyed me the most. The one that annoyed me the most was the kick straight into touch with a dink over the top that went off the side of the boot. And that was the one that annoyed me more. Somehow the 5 meter restart that didn't go 5 and he's waiting for it to go 5. And then I think it's no, not Hooper. I can't remember his name. Back rower.
No, I think it was either Hooper or Tiprig or Valentini, I think. Leota. No,
it's the one off the bench. No, it was the one off the bench with the scrum cap, red scrum cap, whose name.
That was the other Hooper. That was Tom Hooper.
What's the other Hooper? Tom Hooper. I was right. For some reason, I completely lost faith in myself. But yeah, I wasn't too bothered about that. I was just like, oh, that's Thomas having fun. The other one annoyed me. The interesting thing about this Thomas debate, sorry, I know we've tried to avoid it as much as possible, but I remembered the other day that I was going through a Sporkle quiz, which was something like it was the starting 15s from 21-22 season. I was enjoying that, having fun. Got to the Cardiff point, and I was trying to pick the Cardiff team, and I remembered that is the game against Connacht where Prieston gets injured, Jared comes on, Jared gets injured, and who plays fly half?
Lloyd Williams.
Exactly. Point made. Thomas is playing 9. That's just a point on that one.
Thomas took over the goal kicking.
He did.
So if you're worried about whichever 10 we bring in about their goal kicking, Thomas Williams seems more than happy to do it because I think he's got the balls to say, yeah, I'll do it. Which I think is to a certain extent is required for goal kickers.
Yeah.
I mean, it was nice that Thomas Williams loves his dink over the top for the fly half to score a try works no matter what team he's in. And whoever's 10. Because Sam Casello, although he managed to injure himself doing it, because apparently it's not just kind of back 3 players who do that, but I'm sure he set one up for De Beer, didn't he? I think in pre-season he did a dink, and no, it wouldn't be pre-season. I'm sure he did do a dink for De Beer, and it was almost a try.
Yeah, it does ring about it.
But he loves that chip as well. I noticed Bevans started copying him, which I think is great.
Yeah, that was for De Beer actually. That was nice on the weekend. Yeah, I personally, I thought that moment of Tomos chipping over the top was the first player I remember seeing doing that is Ali Price. He did that quite consistently. He used to do that. He did it for the try against England. I can't remember who scored it again, but anyway, when they came back from 31 points down. But yeah, Tomos is a bag of tricks. He always has been, and yeah, whether he's wearing 9 or 10, he's going to be a star player, isn't he?
Yeah, I think definitely a star player. Maybe keep him to 9 and 21, and if he does have to go into 10 in emergency, great. But let's not make it the plan. Let's make it the backup plan.
Or back up to the backup plan, maybe even.
Yeah, that's when we start talking about plan C and D more than plan A or B.
Yeah.
I said I think I've kept you and the listeners long enough, so I think let's definitely call it there. So thank you all for listening. I have had to mute to cough a lot, so I don't particularly. This one probably won't go on to YouTube, but but yeah. But please do check out the other podcasts on the Rap YouTube channel. Please leave comments, reviews on whatever you're listening to this on, and once again, feel free to message us on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram. We may not respond on the Instagram. You're better off on the Twitter or the Facebook, but. Yeah, thank you all for listening. So, ta-ra.
Ja.
Thank you for listening to the Cardiff Central podcast. We hope you enjoyed the show. Please subscribe, rate and review wherever you listen to us, as it really helps spread the word. You can find us on all the usual social media channels or email us on welshregionalrugbypod@gmail.com. And remember, whatever the question is, rugby is always the answer.
Sports Social Podcast Network.